Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to AutoTalk.com. I am Christian Moe, and today we're going to review the 2015 Toyota Prius Liftback.
The Prius Liftback is the darling of the Toyota family. This five-door machine redefined the automotive world by making the hybrid a viable alternative. This newest model still wears the same basic shape that was introduced back in 2003, but subtle changes over the year have kept this fuel sipper feeling fresh. On this car, we have a deep rear spoiler that helps with aerodynamics, handsome forged alloy wheels that look great and cut weight, and then of course we have those signature large headlights and bright, shiny taillights. Other interesting touches on the outside include dual unit lamps on the front of the car that are both amber parking lights and LED fogs.
So welcome to the inside of the 2015 Toyota Prius. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into some of the weird things that you will find inside this car that are different from most cars. The first one is the dashboard. For 90% of cars out there, 99% of cars probably, there is a very standard dash layout where you have your steering wheel and then your center gauge cluster here with all of your gauges. There are some cars that have things different, like the Honda Civic, where you have the weird two-tiered gauges and stuff like that. But this actually harkens back to something that was found in some older Saturns, actually, where the gauge cluster is not here, it's up front, high, and center. So up here in this center top piece, I've got my set of gauges. I've got an LCD screen and an LCD screen. They're two separate screens. First one is buried a little deeper in. It's got my fuel, my speed, what gear I'm in, that sort of stuff. The one on the right is my configurable one. I can set it to my hybrid system indicator. I can set it to a fuel economy calculator. I can set it to a special graph that shows me how much money I'm saving. And sort of all that stuff on that side, that's where your clock is. That's where your fuel range is left, all that sort of stuff. So the one that you can change is on the right, the standard gauges are on the left, and then in the far right corner is a set of your lights and things that you'll find for warning lights, fog lights, low tire pressure, etc. Up here in the center, I've got a big stereo, big screen with navigation. It's Toyota's Entune system. I can hit the little info and apps button. I can get to all sorts of stuff, fuel consumption apps and sports apps and XM prices and things. A lot of buttons going on. Instead of just like one for audio, you've got an AM button, an FM button, satellite button, USB auxiliary button, disc button, audio button. Over on the other side, you've got phone, setup, map, destination, info, and then track seek. You've got a tuning knob and a volume knob. Thankfully, they're just knobs. They work great. This thing does still take CDs, so you get a little button, and the screen will tilt out from the dash. There's a disc slot up top. There you go. Down here, really easy to reach, especially from the wheel, is your controls for the HVAC, the climate control. So it's just a single zone. There's no dual or triple zone in here, just single zone climate control. So I've got a temperature, how much fan I want, do I want defrost or whatever, and then I can just hit auto button and it'll take control of things for me. Up here, there's a really nice little set of buttons. It's my HUD buttons. This car actually has a built-in HUD. So I can hit my little HUD button, cut that on or off, and I can change the mode that it's in. So I have off just my speed, or my speed and my hybrid system indicator that tells me how much power I'm using and if I'm being fuel efficient or not, and then if I'm in charge mode for engine braking, etc. Then there's a Navi button that will cut off navigation instructions in the HUD if you don't want it, and then just position of HUD and the brightness of the HUD. Otherwise, I have my start button, and then here where my shifter is, I've got Toyota's weird little shifter that is over for neutral, over and up for reverse, over and down for drive, and then straight down for B, which is like an extra engine braking mode, and it builds energy. Really weird. I love the way this thing looks. I hate the way it operates. This thing annoys me. I'm also annoyed by cars that have a parking button. So you don't have park on your gear stick, you have a button for park. Thankfully, if you just stop the car and turn the power off, open the door, it'll put itself in park, but it's still annoying. Over here, we've got EV mode, Eco mode, and Power mode, which I'll talk about those when I start driving. Otherwise, that's the entire center cluster. Steering wheel, nice and simple. It's just a rubber wheel with some silver plastic cladding, some controls for climate, for my display meter up there, then volume controls and stuff on the left side. I do have Bluetooth, so I've got stop and start calls. I have lane keep assist and radar guided cruise control in this car, so the controls for that are here. The actual look of it, I don't know. I mean, it looks all right. It's not going to blow your doors off, though. So that's sort of my general feeling on it. It's good enough, but it's not great. The dash is just plastic, but it is covered in a nice wave texture that sort of looks nice, and it's a nice texture to rub on, even if the plastic underneath it feels kind of cheap. Here on the door, you've got more plastic, but instead of a wave pattern, it's like brushed metal. And then you've got padding in a gray fake leather. Here on the center console, you have more of the looks brushed, but it's just silver painted plastic. Again, it looks nice enough just to see. It's a little cheap to touch on, so that's a little annoying when you're hitting the buttons. But the shift knob at least feels good. The acrylic they've got, the little see-through blue acrylic here, feels kind of nice. It's nice and smooth. Got cup holder and a cup holder and a center storage console. Console again is coated in fake leather. Got an armrest. Seats are fake leather stuff. You've got an armrest. You know, it just sort of is an okay place to be. I do like the multicolors. You've got the silver and then the darker gray, and then you've got the lighter gray on the seats and the door panels. It at least adds a bit of color to the interior, even if it is very monochrome in colors. But you've got nice cloth here on this pillars. It's nice and bright above, so that sort of makes the cabin feel a little open, a little more airy. But yeah, otherwise it's just kind of a car. You know, there's nothing amazing here. I've got some seat controls on this side. We've got four-way, I've got forward back, you know, just a couple of different changes. Passenger seat is completely manually operated, so nothing fancy there. Again, it's just kind of a car. Space is good. Headroom here, I've got plenty of headroom. I do have the seat all the way down, but I've got plenty of headroom. I like the big windows. It makes it easy to see, lets a lot of light into the cabin. I enjoy that. Back seat, things are a little iffy. The Prius V has tons and tons of space in the back seat. This one has less so. Legroom is still pretty good, but headroom is at a sharp premium in the back thanks to the sloping aerodynamic roofline of this car. There are 3 seat belts, but obviously it's really only comfortable for 2 adults. And if you have anyone who's 6 foot tall or over, they're going to be hitting their head on the ceiling, so that's a little iffy. It is practical though. Those seats fold down. You've got a big lift-back trunk, so you can put really big things in here. You can take home a nice big TV if you wanted to buy something like that. It should be fine. It'll hold many, many bags of mulch or potting soil if you want to start a garden. Although I'm not sure how much power this will have to pull a couple 100 pounds of mulch, but you can fit it back there, at least. So I think I'm done talking about the inside of this thing. Again, it's nice enough. It's just kind of a car. But what makes the Prius special, of course, is that it's a hybrid. And it's that hybrid drivetrain that everybody's interested in, that everybody wants the Prius for. So let's see what that's all about. What's it like to drive? In general, the Prius has a pretty terrible reputation among the enthusiast crowd of being a boring, terrible car for boring, terrible people to drive among their boring, terrible lives. But I had a Prius V, the bigger version of this, a few months back, and I loved it. I thought it was actually a pretty fun little car. It was interesting, it was quirky. It wasn't that fast, it didn't handle that great, but you could still have fun with it. So does the smaller, hopefully more nimble and more fuel efficient Prius Liftback give me all those same woohoo feelings? So far, not really, and I don't know why. So it has the same layout as the bigger car, which is engine in the front, driving the front wheels, but you've got a big stack of batteries underneath the back seat to balance out the weight. It's got pretty good sized tires. We're running on 17-inch lightweight forged alloy wheels. You know, it's got all the same bits. It uses the same drivetrain. It's the same motor, same electric generator, has the same amount of horsepower. But something about it just doesn't feel as good. And I don't know if it's more the steering or the suspension. I remember the Prius V being a bit stiffer than I expected it to be, and I was pretty pleased with it. This, though, definitely feels like it's more of a comfort cruiser, and if you saw at the wheel, you get a lot of body roll. And that's just no fun. And then the steering is extremely light. Like, it takes no force at all to move this wheel around. And that's great for city driving. It's not great for the driving I usually do, which is mildly aggressive backroad bumming. Now, to be fair, this car is not made for someone who drives like I do and who lives the life that I do. This is made for someone who lives a much more urban lifestyle and not out on a farm. So with that in mind, I took the Prius V I took this Prius into downtown, and I drove around in downtown, and I got myself stuck in rush hour traffic. And in that situation, it works pretty well. The seats are comfortable enough that you can sit back and stare at the line of parked cars in front of you and not be that angry about it because the seat's at least comfortable. The air conditioner works well even when the engine cuts itself off and you're running on battery power, so you can stay cool while you are stuck in traffic. And it'll go a couple of miles on pure battery, and I can get up to like 50 miles an hour on just battery power. So you can save tons and tons and tons of fuel if that's the kind of driving you normally do. In fact, I saw as much as 68 miles to the gallon while I was crawling around in rush hour traffic downtown. That said, once I left my little urban test and I began to drive out here in the beautiful countryside of East Tennessee where I call home, things took a turn for the worse. So, fuel economy. So far, we are sitting at 42.6 miles to the gallon over the last 360 miles. And that is with an average speed of 41 miles an hour. Now, 42.6 might sound pretty good to you, except if you find the window sticker, it says I can get 48 miles per gallon on the highway, 51 in the city, and 50 combined. So I am 8 miles to the gallon underneath my 50 mpg rating, which means that I am 16% below what I should be getting. And I'm not driving this any different than I drive any other car I get. The problem, I think, is the elevation changes. In the area I live, there's lots of hills, ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. And anytime you go up a hill, you've got to give this car some gas. And when you hit the accelerator, it cuts the engine in, drops revs, and it gives you the power you need to climb a steep grade. But that drinks fuel. So fuel efficiency out here in the countryside has been not abysmal, but definitely not great. I expected a bit more out of the Prius. Noises, anytime the engine revs up, the engine doesn't make a great noise. It's pretty drony and thrashy. Thankfully, it is fairly quiet. The car is well insulated, so if you have the radio up just a little bit, you probably won't be able to hear the engine very often. Just driving down the highway, again, very subdued ride. The soft suspension soaks up bumps and dips in the road, so you just sort of waft along just fine. You can sort of sit there and enjoy the trip. It doesn't take a lot of effort to drive this thing, and it won't beat you up. I can see why a lot of people would like it. My general feeling about it is there's a lot of other cars I'd rather buy for the $38,000 that this thing costs. There are things I think might be nearly as fuel efficient, especially if you live out in this country like I do, for that price range. So I'm not sure if I could recommend this to everybody. But again, I believe that if you really do spend a lot of time in stop-go traffic, if you spend a lot of time in the city, then something like this makes sense. Like, I get it. I don't want to own one, but I can see why somebody would. That kind of became my general thoughts on this car overall. It's not my favorite car to drive, even a little bit. But I can respect why somebody would want to buy one. Being able to drive without using any gasoline is awesome. I've got a little EV mode button here. I can press that, and I can travel up to 25 miles an hour, and the car will force the engine to stay in electric-only mode. The engine will never cut off. Once you go above 25, it kicks you out of EV mode, but you can still be driving on just battery power. You can drive on battery power up to 50 miles an hour that I've been able to make it do. So like right now, actually, I'm doing 43 and I am in EV mode. Like the car is just driving on batteries. I'm not using any gasoline at all. And that's cool. And of course, if you are all about saving all the extra fuel, you've got an eco button here. You can press. That lags up the throttle response, makes you have to push the pedal a lot more to sort of get some speed moving, so that'll help you save some fuel. And if you want to feel like you're driving a race car, you've got a little power button. By the way, I'm using race car very loosely. You can hit the little power button, and the power button gives you a lot more power. It makes the electric motor and the engine kick in together far more often, lets the car downshift a lot sooner, just makes everything a bit more peppy. but again, you lose more fuel. I've been driving around in normal mode, so no eco, no power, and that's what I'm getting my 42 miles to the gallon with. When I had it in power mode, just to do some fuel economy testing on normal driving, I was getting about 38. So if you keep it out of power mode, you'll save yourself a bit of gas. Otherwise, it's just an okay thing. Like, in a lot of ways, this is just a car. It's not a fancy, world-changing, ultra-fuel-efficient machine like some people want you to believe. It is not the most terrible thing to drive and the bane of the existence of all petrol heads. It isn't that either. It's just a machine that is made to get somebody from point A to point B and do it relatively comfortably and relatively efficiently. So that would be my final verdict on the 2015 Toyota Prius. It's a good car if it's the kind of car you want. It's just not the kind of car I want. So, thank you guys for joining me. Once again, I am Christian Moe. This has been a review for AutoTalk.com. If you want to see more reviews like this, you can go to AutoTalk.com, or you can subscribe to us on YouTube. We're also on the Facebooks and the Twitters, and we do all of the social media stuffs. So, yay, AutoTalk.com. Anyways, if you guys like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you disliked it, please give us a thumbs down. Either way, please leave us a comment. Let us know what you liked and what you didn't. We want to make these videos better for you, and to do that, we have to know what we're doing wrong and what we're doing right. We'll try to do more right things, less wrong things, and hopefully everybody will be happier. Anyways, like I said, I'm Christian Moe. Thank you guys for watching so much. I will see you next week.